Okay, it's time to get started. Thank you, everyone, for joining our live lecture today. My name is Isaac, and I'll be the lead instructor for the lecture. And today's topic will be career skills. So let's go ahead and let's start off with talking about career planning. Okay, so career programmers are a lot like doctors in the way they tend to specialize in one specific field, right? A radiologist, oncologist, cardiologist, right? And then they are very much like a high schooler in the way that they don't really know what field they want to get into, right? So that's kind of a double conundrum. So that being said, no one really knows what they want to do when they first get into software. You're not alone. A lot of people figure it out in their first couple of years. Normally, working at different jobs and different projects kind of gives you an idea of what you want to do. But nonetheless, it's a good idea to make sure you start that career planning over the first couple of years, and you don't wait till like year 5 to try to strategically plan out a career for yourself. So if you're unsure of what you want to do in the software field, there's a specific technique out there called SWOT that you can use to help you figure out where you fit in based on 4 factors. So the first factor is strengths, second is weaknesses, third is opportunities, and fourth is threats. So let's take a minute to go over each of those. Okay, so strengths would be if you're someone who's maybe creative, motivating, energetic. Weaknesses would be if you're someone who's maybe impatient, outspoken, unrealistic. And so, depending on what you're strong at, right? So, maybe you're motivating, you'd be good for a leadership position. But maybe your weakness is you are impatient. So you shouldn't be facing customers, right? Maybe that would be a kind of combo you would look for. And then as well, you want to look for opportunities out there, right? And these increase by the day, it seems like, with the tech field, right? So right now, very popular ones like front-end engineer, back-end engineer, data scientist. I mean, the list goes on. So see what's out there, and that really helps you establish what you want to do based on what's available. And then last, identify threats. Okay, so threats could be things like criminal history, unemployment, finances. So let's look a little closer at those. Like criminal history could be like if you want to work for the FBI, right, writing software. Well, if you don't have a squeaky clean record, then you probably shouldn't pursue that the path, right? That's not gonna be a smart career plan. And then maybe unemployment's another one, right? You don't want to get into a field that is just going to be obsolete in a couple of years, right? That happens all the time in tech as things get automated. So do your due diligence and make sure things aren't going to be phased out. And then finances, things like if the specific career path you're going for requires you to have gone to a prestigious university, right, that costs lots of money, something like that, and you don't have the finances to achieve that. Again, that's something else you've got to consider when you're doing your career planning. Okay, so again, that is SWOT, and stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So next, let's talk about your soft skills. So the vast majority of people who become programmers have several other non-technical skills that have been acquired through previous employment and education and are transferable to the programming job. Okay, so these skills are things like interpersonal skills, that's how you act with others, or organizational skills, how you approach tasks, leadership skills, how you motivate and direct others, and communication skills, how you talk and communicate with others, right? So thing is, there's going to be a lot of other people applying for the same job as you, and you can pretty much bet they're all going to have tech skills. Okay, so to make yourself stand out, you've got to offer more than just your tech skills. Okay, and a lot of times you can offer your soft skills as well, which typically come from previous employment of sorts or training, right? So it's very uncommon to meet someone whose first job is a software developer, right? Most people have been a dishwasher or mowed lawns or done something else where they gain some soft skills before they become a programmer. Okay, so make sure you identify those and use them to your advantage. All right, now let's talk about your tech resume. Okay, so there's 3 C's of resume building. It must be clean, so it needs to be proofread, easy to read font, not cluttered. It needs to be concise. Okay, so all content should be relevant to the job. Don't put that you worked at Aunt Sally's in the year 2000. Babysitting, right? Something that's not relevant. It really just is a space waster. Okay. And then it needs to be convincing. Okay. So you should showcase your skills, but don't try to oversell it, right? Don't use, fluffed up vocabulary that you don't normally use in your everyday vocabulary. It's really easy to spot. Okay. So although the resume process is subjective, statistics show we have around 7 to 10 seconds of viewing time by a hiring manager before they move on to the next resume in the stack. So knowing that, we have to strategically place the most important information at the top of the resume. Okay, so let's go over the 3 most important factors to have at that top section. Okay, the first would be your GitHub and LinkedIn profile links. Okay, got to have both of them for technical and non-technical recruiters. As well, you should have your tech skills at that top path, and you should have your project examples. Okay, so now let's take a minute to look at an example of a bad resume and a good resume. So we'll start with an example of a bad resume, what not to do. So as we can see here, the first thing we notice is this big, ugly blue graphic. Okay, leave pictures and graphics, all that kind of stuff out of it, right? Should just be informational. Second thing we notice is they have a GitHub link, but there is no LinkedIn. Okay, again, this is bad because if the manager or recruiter happens to be non-technical, GitHub's going to be pretty useless to them. They're not going to be able to understand, how efficient of a coder you are by looking at that. Okay, so you make sure you have both those links. Then down here they listed, the skills at the top half. So nothing wrong here. Where they went wrong a second time is they listed education before projects. Okay, and projects hold just a little more weight on a resume because oftentimes you can have a link to your project and they can click on it and they can get that kind of immediate satisfaction of like knowing and feeling and testing out your work versus saying you went to some fancy university or something to that nature. And you might have built something, you might have not, and it might have been with a relative in technology. I mean, there's so many maybes that it's kind of a guessing game what you can actually do until you get on the job. So for them, projects hold more weight in the fact that they can like test them right there on the spot versus education. They really can't get a feel for which, you can do until you're on the job. Okay. As well, this resume is very long-winded, right? 2 pages, and statistics show they're not even going to get past the first half, right? So we're definitely not going to waste time blowing up, 2 pages. Okay, so that's an example of a bad resume. So now let's take a look at an example of a good resume. Let's see here. Let's try that again. There it goes. Okay. Excellent. So as we can see, the first thing we have up here is the GitHub and LinkedIn profiles, right? That's important for both the technical and non-technical recruiters. Okay, and then we have the tech skills. Again, this is on the top half of the resume, so it is in the correct place. And then we have the projects right before this middle section right here, right? This is about halfway down the page. And this is where it puts the projects before education. And again, education is good to put on there, right? Like you want to add value, but projects come first. And of course, it's only 1 page, very short, to the point, and gives any hiring manager a real nice, quick snapshot of who you are as a software professional. Okay, so that is an example of a good resume. So moving forward, let's go ahead and talk about 10 things never to put on your resume. Okay, so first is never put misspelled words or bad grammar, because in 2017, there is no excuse for having misspelled words or bad grammar. There's so many tools and apps out there that you can use that are free. Make use of them and make sure you have the best possible chance of getting hired by eliminating any spelling mistakes, because we're all human. We're all going to forget, something here or there. Okay. Second, never include personal information like your social security number. Okay, so although it's common practice for them to ask for your social security number in the event that they're doing a background check or something of that nature, but that's when they ask for it, right? And if they're asking for it, they're more than likely interested in hiring you, and that's why they're running, background check or whatever it might be. So it's definitely okay to give to them, but don't put that on your resume physically, because your resume is, not only emailed around, but it is also printed out. And, sometimes those resumes, go in the trash, and then, whoever gets to that trash could, have access to your social security number, right? So, just don't put any sensitive information to that nature. Third, never include things like jokes, okay? So even if it's tech related, like I like to hack the FBI in my free time, right? Just, leave the humor side out of it. Just, stick professional with your resume. Okay. Fourth, never include irrelevant work or job experience. Okay. This goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Don't say you worked at Aunt Sally's for a summer in 2000 babysitting, right? It's better just to put nothing than to put irrelevant experience. Okay. 5, never put meaningless words you don't normally use in your everyday vocabulary. I've actually talked to a couple of recruiters about this, and this is an immediate red flag, because the general population does not stray away from a general vocabulary syntax. Okay, so that being said, when someone uses a big word like exuberant, or my skills are supercalifragilisticexpialidocious, right? I mean, you'd be amazed, some of the big words people try to put on there just to make their self sound much more valuable, but it actually has the opposite effect. It comes up as a red flag, and for them it looks like you're trying to make yourself sound smarter than you actually are. Okay, so be yourself, be professional, but don't try to oversell it, because that's actually really easy to spot it. 6, never include reasons for leaving previous positions. Okay, again, this is very common to ask during interviews or on job applications, but on your resume, do not put that just blatantly, because when they read it, they might misinterpret why you left as a bad reason or whatever else it may be. You don't want to leave that up to chance. Okay, so you wait for them to ask that question, and then you explain yourself in that regard. Okay, but don't put it on there. Consider it a space waster. Okay, 7th, never include things like hobbies. Okay, again, this is precious landscape you're using up. You only have one page, right? So you don't want to put anything that isn't pertinent to the job on there. Okay, if they really like you and they hire you, they're going to get to know your hobbies and all that stuff afterwards. So, next, number 8, never include salary requirements. Okay, so if they want to hire you, they are going to ask you your salary requirements, right? But don't put that on the resume, okay? Because it just comes off as that's all you're thinking about is the money. That's all, you're not there to make a difference in their company. You're just there for the paycheck, right? Employers want to believe you're there for a bigger purpose. So leave that salary requirements off the resume. Okay, number 9, references. Again, another space waster, okay? Oftentimes, they'll ask for references on like an application or something, but on a resume, it's up to you what you put on there, okay? So maybe if you want, you can put a one-liner that says, excellent references available upon request. I mean, that wouldn't be really a big deal, but don't put, 5-6 lines of addresses and phone numbers and names of, 3-4 different individuals, because that's just going to eat up a lot of space. And it's really not 100% necessary these days. Okay, and number 10, never include unprofessional contact information. Okay, so this is things like inappropriate or immature emails or voicemails, right? Things of that nature. You want to make sure you eliminate during your job search period to give yourself the best chance possible, impressing them rather than doing the opposite. Okay. So let's go ahead and move on from talking about our resume and let's talk about networking. Okay, we have a resume put together. We're ready to, let the world know we're available for a job. Okay, so there's two kinds of networking. We've got online networking, okay, and we've got in-person networking, okay. And in-person networking is actually the most effective way to get a job in the tech industry. Weirdly enough, tech is all, especially software is, all online, right? And so you would assume that all the jobs would be online, but it's very much the opposite. There's a, chunk of the market called the hidden market, okay, where 80% of job openings are not posted online. Okay, and that's because a lot of these developer firms, these shops, they hire from in-house recommendations, right? The developer community is very, tight knit. Developers know other developers, so it tends to be when an employer needs another developer, they just ask their team to go find someone, and that usually ends up working out. They very rarely need to post something online to get someone in the door. Okay, so knowing that, the way you can access this hidden network is putting yourself out there through in-person networking. Okay, so we recommend coding meetups, right? Things that are centralized around software development. Okay, and you'll go there and they'll give a little workshop on something, and then afterwards you'll mingle and talk with a bunch of developers in your local area. And a lot of them already have jobs. A lot of them are just coming to, keep current or learn a new skill or whatever else it might be. And yeah, a lot of times you'll go and meet them and they will, have recommendations for you, or they'll let you know, no, we're not, not looking for anyone right now. But the point is that the more you're putting yourself out there, your face is seen, people know you're a developer, you're making connections on Facebook and LinkedIn, and you're getting people's phone numbers, and the more you do that, the higher your chances are of finally, getting recommended by one of these in-house developers saying, hey, I know this guy shows up at meetups all the time. He's looking for work. And, you said you needed someone, so I just wanted to shoot his number your way, right? That's typically how it works. So make sure you put yourself out there and take advantage of the hidden market, because it's definitely the number one way to acquire a job in the tech industry. Okay, so where to find the meetups? Well, we recommend a couple of directories. We recommend meetup.com and eventbrite.com. And they're real simple. You just go and type in the name of your area you're looking and the kind of event. Okay, so maybe you want a JavaScript event or a Python event or a Ruby event. I mean, really, there's just events everywhere for all sorts of different things. So just take your time and look over what works best for you. All right, so next let's talk about finding the right fit company-wise. Okay, so it's always a good idea to do your research and learn about an organization before you apply for a position. Okay, and it's important for a couple different reasons. One, during the interview, it's good to look like you actually know something about the company, because then it shows that you actually care about what they do and not just the paycheck. Okay, and two, it's good to identify what kind of culture they have before you apply, because if it doesn't line up with your culture, the way you're used to working, maybe they work 12-hour work days and you only want to work 8, right? Whatever it might be, you want to make sure you don't get all the way through that interview and get hired, and then the first couple weeks on the job you find out that it's just not gonna fit with you culture-wise and you quit, right? That's just a really bad experience for everyone. So do 5 minutes of Googling, before you go into the interview, and get yourself acquainted a little bit with, what the company's all about, what their vision is, where they see themselves in the future, all that kind of stuff. All right, now let's go ahead and switch gears and let's talk about the online job search now. Okay, we've already harped on you the importance of putting yourself out there in the in-person job search with the hidden market. However, the other 20% of the market, the online jobs, are totally valid ways of getting picked up by a company as well. Although, the chances are less, there's definitely still valid. Okay, so there's lots of job boards out there. Really, you can take your pick, whatever works best for you. But we recommend, using some of the bigger ones, that companies know about and they post to on a regular basis. Indeed.com is very good. Monster.com, Dice.com, and then Craigslist is actually a personal recommendation for myself because although these big job boards are great, for bigger companies, a lot of times the smaller startups and dev shops will post on Craigslist when they need someone right away. And so a lot of times it's easy because they have a phone number or right direct email address to the owner, whatever it might be. So sometimes this is a good way to get picked up at a first job by looking at Craigslist posting. Okay, but really anywhere you can find the postings and you can get your resume out there. That's really the best approach to go with. All right, now let's reiterate on your email and your voicemail. Okay, so we already talked about during a job search, you need to make sure your email and voicemail is cleaned up. But we didn't really explain why. And it might seem obvious, but it's because if you have an immature or an inappropriate email, the potential employer might get turned off and they might find that distasteful. And they might decide not to hire you just because of your branding basically through your email, right? What it says about you. If you're Johnny the Ladies Man 89 or you John.Smith@gmail, right? It's like there's a very big difference in people's minds of who these individuals are just by their tags here. Okay, and then voicemail, a lot of people like to joke or leave drunk voicemails, whatever. But during a job search period, you definitely should have a very short and to the point email. So if they call you back with a follow-up interview or anything like that, they also won't hear the voicemail and just not want to hire you. All righty. So next, let's talk about LinkedIn. Okay, so LinkedIn is the world's largest networking platform for business professionals. And you've probably heard of it by now. And you might have a profile and you might not. But if you don't have a profile, I'm here to tell you, you need to get one right away. Because the sooner you get it, the sooner you can start building it up, and it will become more impressive to potential hiring employers. So let's take a minute to take a look at an example of a good LinkedIn profile. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and navigate to an example. So as you can see here, we'll just start with the picture. It's up to date. It's not taken with a Polaroid in the 80s, right? Nothing like that. And he's smiling, right? That's probably the most important aspect of this photo is smile. You have to smile in your photo. Otherwise, a lot of employers are going to view you as grumpy or something like that. No one wants to work with that kind of person. So take a picture where you're smiling and put it in there. Next, a simple headline here. What you're excited about now, cool things you want to do in the future. Okay, summary's a little blurb. It's a little about me, summed up in a couple paragraphs here. Okay, experiences like your online resume, right? We have where they worked, the time frames they worked there, the description, the website links, right? All that great stuff. Organizations, this pretty much speaks for itself. Maybe you're part of the Boy Scout leadership or something like that. Girl Scout leadership, right? Part of an organization like that. I don't know. Things like that tend to speak to people's characters. They're not just couch potatoes that aren't involved in anything. Next is education. Okay, so very, very good list, adds value, shows that you're actually trained in a specific area or field. Volunteer experiences is very good. Some companies like Facebook and Google, they look for things like that. If you don't have any, you almost like shoot your chances of getting in. So if you have that stuff, definitely put it on there and make sure it's known. Next, we got skills and expertise. And this is one of my favorite sections because it allows you to list all your skills, and then you can have your connections, which are like friends on LinkedIn. You can have all of them endorse you for these skills. And the more professionals that endorse you, the more it adds weight that you can actually perform that skill. Okay, and So a lot of times with these recruiters, these companies, it's a big guessing game. They really, a lot of them don't know how good you are at software development until you get on the job. And that's really, that's a hard thing for, these companies to hire on that kind of basis. So it helps for them if they have some validation by coming in your LinkedIn account and saying, oh, look, 40 people endorsed you for, Ruby or Python or C Sharp, right? Obviously, probably all 40 of those people, are telling the truth. Okay. And so in that way, they know that you probably can definitely perform that skill and they don't have to question it so much. Okay. Honors and awards. If you've earned, prize in or out of school, let the world know, post it up. Courses. This kind of relates back to education, right? If you have specific training, right, or certifications, right, you can list those here. Projects is another one of my favorite sections. You can actually list, the work you've done. You can have links to the work and they can, click on it and view any collaborators and all that kind of great stuff. So it really, really gives them a good idea if you've done team kind of building or you've just been a solo developer or, that kind of thing. And then finally, we've got recommendations down here. Okay, and recommendations are, just like verbal endorsements. Basically, it's your connections letting the world know why they think you would be a great candidate for such and such positions. Okay, so make sure you get plenty of endorsements. Ask for them often, and the more you have, the more it adds weight to again, you can actually do what you say you can do. All right, so that covers LinkedIn. Now let's go ahead and talk about GitHub. Okay, so by now you should already have a GitHub account. And so let's take a look at an example of a good GitHub account. Okay, so as we can see here, first thing we're greeted with is her smile, right? We're not greeted with, a frown or anything to that nature. So we immediately get a sense of friendliness. Okay, next you'll notice, she's had a great amount of contributions in the last year. You can see somewhere around here she got hired and then does a lot less coding because she's contributing to her employer's repository instead of her own. Okay, but this is really what junior developers GitHub should look like, right? You should have lots and lots of activity at first, lots of repositories because you're getting started and you're practicing, you're building projects, and then you'll have a nice smiling picture, a quick kind of quirky description here, and that's it. Really, this is a good GitHub profile in a nutshell. Okay, so that being said, make sure that you always have like relevant repositories. You never want to just have some repositories where they're going to go look at it and they're going to see like one line of code or something, right? And something to where it wasn't really a project, right? It wasn't worth storing on here, but you did it anyway. Makes you look a little unprofessional, but that's a different story. So example of a good GitHub profile. Next, let's talk about your online branding. Okay, so in the tech-driven era, employers often look for online resources that don't have anything to do with you as a professional, but rather who you are as a person in general. Okay, so they've got two developers, and developer A and B both have the same level of experience in their technical skills. Okay, so some employers might decide to go on both their Facebook accounts or their Twitter accounts, right, and view all their previous public activity and see if it was, maybe immature or inappropriate in any way. And a lot of times that helps them decide which candidate to go with. Okay, so example of bad branding would be if they went on your Facebook account and they saw pictures of you drinking at last night's party, every other week on your Facebook, right? Versus having, very, plain kind of posts, right? Nothing, too out there, nothing too offensive. And, maybe a high number of profile followers, right? Things like being an influencer in any way is not a bad thing. That's a good online branding, okay? You just want to make sure you balance that and you don't just include anything and everything, okay? All righty, moving right along. Next, let's talk about the elevator pitch. Okay, so we've all been asked the question or given the prompt in an interview, tell me about yourself. And a lot of times we just kind of say what comes to our mind. I was born here, I like to fish, and, I hope to, someday own my own company, blah, 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 right? Most of the time it doesn't feel genuine, it doesn't feel prepared, and it definitely does not feel confident, okay? And so what you can do to deliver a more straightforward answer when they prompt you with that is you can prepare what's called an elevator pitch. And it works in this broken down structure. It's 30 to 60 seconds, not too short, not too long. It should say what you do well, so that's your skills. It should say what you want to do, so that's your goals. And it should say why you want to do it, which is your intent. Okay? So elevator pitches are one of the easiest things to deliver on because you can actually practice them before the interview versus many other aspects of the interview you cannot practice for, right? You can't practice for the tech questions they're going to ask because you don't know. But you do know that more than likely they're going to ask you to tell them about yourself. There's a very high chance anyway. So you want to go in guns blazing, so to speak, to where when they ask that question, you deliver a very confident, direct answer to where they feel confident about you just in the way you answered it. Okay? So now let's move on to the subject of the technical interview. Okay, so tech interviews comes in all shapes and sizes, so there's no one way to prepare. Instead, it's best just to use a series of different tools which will help you prepare for scenarios in which you're going to need to answer questions in a certain way, right? Okay, so here's a few sites we can recommend. First one's coderbyte.com. And coderbyte.com is really great at helping you prepare for interviews because it'll start you with easy questions and then move you to medium and then to hard. And you can actually see your skills increasing over time. And so with that comes confidence, and you can more directly execute during the tech interview. Okay, another one we recommend is CodeFights. Okay, and CodeFights is good for learning to code on the spot. Okay, because they'll pair you with their programmer and have you guys build something, and whoever's is the best wins, right? So that's CodeFights gets you in the kind of mindset of working under pressure in that way. And then interviewcake.com is very good in the way that they teach you how to answer interview questions. Okay, so there's strategic techniques you can use to where even if you don't get the answer correct for the question, they'll actually still give you credit because of the way you approach it, which sounds weird, but this is where interviewcake.com helps kind of separate, all the oil from the water in that way. Okay. So let's wrap up with the topic of follow-up. Okay, so as in most industries, it's a good idea to follow up with the hiring managers on your submitted applications as well as your previous interviews. Keep in mind that the hiring manager is often cycling through tons of applications, so it helps to have someone reach out to them to make yourself more memorable. And it's all about initiative here. Okay, so again, if we have a situation where an employer has hired many candidates and they've narrowed it down to two. And these two candidates, they both have the same tech skills, the same soft skills, and they're just really having a hard time deciding which candidate to go with. Okay? And then one candidate, developer A, calls in and says, hey, I'm following up on my resume. I just, I wanted to thank you for the time during the interview, to see if anything came of it. And developer B just decides not to do anything. Okay? More than likely, just because developer A called it and showed just a tiny amount of initiative, that developer is more than likely going to get the job over developer B, okay, because they showed more effort in that way. Okay, so even if you think you blew an interview and you think you didn't get the job, follow up anyway, and they'll tell you if you didn't. They don't mind doing that. So that being said, let's go ahead and take a moment to open up the floor and see if anyone has any questions. Okay, so the floor is open. If you have questions, feel free to ask those now. Okay. No questions today. All righty. Well, thanks for coming, everyone. Have a great day and happy coding.